So on ball versus off ball officiating. So this one we'll be talking about uh, more on field mechanics. So it's a big field. There's a lot to cover. Whether in a 2-man game or 3-man game, there's going to be times where you're the on ball official and times where you're the off ball official. And often there may be questions about what am I supposed to be doing in each of those roles. All right. So first, I'm going to talk about on ball. All right, on ball, settled transition. 2 or 3-man mechanics. So it's either guy or all 3 guys. It's similar as far as I'm concerned for all 3 officials. When you're on ball, if you're the guy who's on ball, you're on ball. So you have the action in front of you. Okay, you're looking at the player contact, the player with possession, and the defensive player who's challenging them. That's your primary focus. You're looking at that player contact. We're looking for the slashes, the holds, illegal body checks, offensive players warning off, illegal screens right there at the point of attack where we're setting a screen on ball. This is the easy part, right? These are the obvious fouls. So when you're on ball, you're watching that action that's happening right in front of you. The ball in possession. These are the things, the calls we've got to make. These are the ones that everybody sees because most people who are watching the game, they're just watching the ball as it goes around, and everybody sees the obvious slash, the obvious warding off if he's putting his arm out and creating an advantage, some of the sloppy illegal screens. So when you're on ball, that's what you have. Whether we're in transition and the ball is coming up, if it's in your area, in your zone, you're on the ball and you're looking for those type of infractions. Okay, and these are the ones we got to make sure we get because these are the ones that everybody sees, and they're the ones we got to keep an eye on because you have your high hits, your slashes, those type of things that we got to make sure we're getting. And then it's also the warding off, the holds, legal screens. That's the kind of stuff that we got to control as the game goes on because everybody's seeing it. And if those ones go uncalled or if they're not being properly adjudicated, then we can have issues as it starts to build throughout the game. All right, so off-ball officiating. All right, this is where we make our money. All right, everybody's watching the ball. All the parents in the stands and a lot of the coaches, they're watching what's going on with the player with possession. Okay, most of them aren't spending as much time focusing on what's happening with all the other players, with the other 20 some players in the field. Okay, they're all watching the kid with the ball and the kid who's guarding him. All right, so this is where we really are doing our job and making our money as officials. These are generally not the obvious personal foul infractions. They're not your obvious slash, your obvious illegal body check, your obvious cross checks. These are typically going to be more your procedural or technical fouls, and these are the ones that show up on film. Especially that's why it's great to go back and watch film of games you do because these are the things where you can go see them, and these are the things that may get sent to assigners or sent to your other the things that evaluators are looking at where we miss those technical fouls or procedural calls on film that may be impacting a play in the game. The late offsides that we didn't see, the illegal screens happening. That's one thing I get a lot from coaches. We usually asking coaches, what do you want me to look for? You get a lot of answers that have to do with watching off-ball screens. A lot of teams like to work those backside kind of rub plays where they have an offensive player cutting through the crease and they are, it's borderline whether or not are they setting a legal screen on defenders in that backside to seal them off, or are they just cutting through and they happen to run into them? That's something I get quite often as something that coaches want you to look for. And that's the kind of stuff, again, off ball, we keep our eye on that. And that's the stuff, again, that will show up on film if we're not keeping up with it. And then again, this is an area where we need to work to help manage the game. The stuff that's going on off ball will have a very direct impact on how we control the game as it goes. All right. So the 2 kids, the high school kid knuckleheads that are jawing each other on the backside of the play, where nobody else is really paying attention, that's the kind of stuff that can escalate to. It was the 2 of them jawing each other on the backside of the play where nobody was looking, and before you know it, there's the 2 of them throwing blows and everybody's looking. Right? And we didn't control that when we had a chance. And same thing, whether they're jawing at each other, kind of shoving at each other, grabbing or pulling, kind of holding each other, that kind of stuff. That's where the things we need to police off ball, be making sure we're seeing it, so that we can control it, put a stop to it, talk to those players. My best advice is, always be communicative and preventative officiating. If you're paying attention, you see it, you tell them to stop. Call them out by number. White number 32, white number 32, leave him alone. All right. And if he doesn't respond, I might give him that command again. And you know what? If they don't listen after the second or third time, then that's fine. We'll have to throw a flag, give them interference, give them something like that. Make sure that we can get an infraction so they know we're watching and we need them to knock it off. And especially if you can tell the coach, hey, I talked to him, I told him to stop 2 or 3 times. He just kept doing it. Most coaches are going to give you a lot less argument about that. Because again, these are calls that we're making where it's not the general focus of the play. So when you got to make that call, half the time the coach is going to be asking you what's going on because nobody was looking at that. But if you were with the off-ball official and you're watching it happen, you're trying to manage it there, you're probably the only person who saw it, and making sure that you can explain it and you gave gave the kids a chance to correct their problem before we had to throw that flag. All right. And know your level of competition. This is usually something you may have to deal with and, maybe a little bit of a sloppier game, where kids aren't as sharp. Maybe they're just, they're overmatched and they're just trying to do what they can to slow the kid down in the crease. So they're hooking him with their stick, talk them through it as much as we can. All right. But somebody needs to be watching that. So let's talk about how we're going to watch that and who's going to do it. All right, so I'm going to work through this kind of in the flow of the game. So I'm going to talk about the different positions as we go through transition and as we go through a settled set. So when you're off ball in transition as the lead official, so you're the lead official, the ball is not within your zone. So it's probably, let's say I'm running right, and the ball is still coming up kind of slow behind the midfield line. All right, of course, number one, we always want to stay ahead of the ball. At that point, when the ball is coming towards us, you can be counting forward just to see if you get that immediate offsides that's happening. What I would really encourage is be aware of where the defensive players are and the goalie are in the direction you're going. All right. This is when you can have your defensive player, the big hit. So if you have a big pass that comes up, you should be looking around and have that big picture look to see where those defenders are, where the goalie is. So if that pass comes up and you are aware where that pole is and he comes flying up and takes the kid's head off, we're ready to make that call. And we're not as surprised as the kid who gets hit is when somebody crushes him on a long pass coming up. Be ready for the pace to be pushed in transition. Be ready to cover the goal and chase shots at the end line. It can happen pretty quick. You're there, you're getting some depth. The ball still just hadn't crossed the midfield line yet. But with some of the more higher caliber teams, that can be 2 passes away from being on goal. We got to be there ready to go. So making sure we're flowing upfield, keeping the balls coming towards us. We're watching the players as they're acting. That's where we can look and see if we see anything like an early offsides, or if there is any kind of the defensive players there, any action there between the defenseman and the attackman. Any kind of interference that might be happening, and then be ready for that quick pace push. Be ready for a shot that comes in and then chasing it off the end line. All right, so if we're off ball in transition as a single side, a 3-man crew, all right, get to the cone. All right, number one with our single side for me, you got to get to the cone and get there and be ready. All right, you're counting forward. So if the ball's on the far side of the field, say it's far side, still coming up on the defensive end, maybe goalie's passed his outlet to a pole down there and the ball is still down below the restraining line. All right, we get there and you have the big picture of the whole field. We're counting forward. All right, we're looking for that early offsides as they're starting to come in through the transition. You start counting the kids that go across, and we're looking to catch to see if we have that 7th kid come across. Be there to see that overzealous attackman go off sides on the ride or that cheap trailing slash. This is something that I guess Marty just pointed out to me recently, and I've tried to start working on it. I think Noah mentioned it last week. I am the same way about tending to move too much. Like I'm trying to flow too fast with the game. You can hang out there on the cone for just a second and be there to see that attackman who's, say, riding the kid across by the box, and you've already been keeping your count, and you see you already got 6 over, and he's then chasing somebody who's a midfielder who's trying to cross over, and it's short. We're up against the 20-second count, and then he goes over the midfield line while riding him. right? And you're there and you got that, and you're right there on the line and you can see it. Same thing with that cheap trailing slash. That the attackman who's trying to get that last lick in, and he takes a big looping one-handed check, and gets that on the backside of the play. You're watching that even if the ball goes away. Also watching for that kind of stuff in between. If there's off-ball guys that are, again, passed from the defensive player, saying it's going from your side down below the restraining line, passing up towards the box area. All right, and then you have say a late hit down there. Make sure we're keeping our eye for that stuff. All right, so off ball transition on that trail official. This is a phrase that I know I heard a lot coming up. Was you have a fast lead and a slow trail. So in this case, you want to be nice. You're not in a big rush here. You should take your time coming up. Once the play starts, maybe the ball starts with you and you're on ball with the goalie and the first outlet to a defender. But then once it starts moving up in front of you, all right, you take our time following the ball up. All right, we're watching the backside of that play. All right, we're going to make sure we're going to keep an eye out for those late hits behind. That's where we're going to see, defenseman, after he has the outlet pass, he passes the ball up towards the midfield area. All right, and you're going to hang out right there because that's often where you're going to find that cheap slash, the late hit that may come from an attackman. That's when they're getting their pound of flesh after the defender's been working on them in their previous settled situation. After he passes the ball away, the attackman takes 4 or 5 steps and decks the defender, or takes 4 or 5 steps and still slashes him across the arm. That's the kind of stuff that, as that trail in transition, we're hanging back, we're watching for that before we start to move up. I obviously know the game. That's my lower part there. If it's a contentious game, you really got to watch for that. Watch for that contact and conduct of players behind the play, right? That's where you can have things that will escalate. And I've had that experience last year. It was at a scrimmage, actually. That was, I'm hoping this year so far I've broken that streak of having somebody get ejected from the first scrimmage of the year, which I had for the last couple years in a row. In that case, is what I was describing. Defensive player passed the ball to midfield. Behind the play there, attackman came running over, probably good 3 or 4 steps, and then just shoved him right in the chest and knocked him over. I was trail there. I had a flag for that. Unfortunately, by the time the kids got up and as play continued, because it was a flag down, play on, the defenseman decided to get back up and then just immediately charged at the attackman, and they got into a scuffle. And both of them ended up getting ejected. So, again, it's a good example of when you know what the game is at and what the temperature of the game is, make sure you're hanging back there as that trail, keeping an eye on that stuff that's going on behind the play, because those are the calls we're going to have to make when, in that case, nobody else may be looking at it. Nobody else in the field, even in the stands, or coaches are looking at it. We need to have eyes on that. All right. So as you're coming up, make sure, again, we're counting forward. We're always counting forward. You're there going to have that later offsides because by then, most likely, our single side and lead have already started to go down into the offensive zone on the other side. You're going to be looking for those late offsides where, say, an attackman goes late, bad substitutions, that kind of thing. Make sure we're counting up. As you come up, this is something that guys have different opinions on. So I'm going to say this right now. What I say in this presentation, I'm going to give you a couple different examples. And it kind of actually is relevant to something I'm talking about later. Everybody's still a little different on this. You can, as you clear the boxes, come on up. You can post up at what would be in this case the cone closest to you, but the cone on the defensive half of the field, where you finish watching transition occur with the substitutions happening, watching our substitutions, and then coming through to clear the box, make sure the box is clear as you come through. Okay, that's certainly a mechanic that I have been told. And I can also say it's been a mechanic I've been told not to do. So take that for what it is. Whatever you're comfortable with there is what I recommend. It a lot of times, and depending on the level of game, and if you're a 2-man crew, you may need to just go ahead and come through the box area, get to the near cone or closer up, a little like halfway down the face-off wing, If you need to hang back there and watch the final transition to make sure we're not having issues with offsides or illegal substitutions, then do so. But at least then you're in the offensive half of the field, especially in a two-man crew, so you can be up there to see off ball, to keep eyes on a shooter, especially that one. If in a two-man crew on a JV game, to me, that shooter is a bigger priority than worrying about if kids are trading feet in the box, right? I don't want to be standing there watching the box when you have maybe a couple quick passes and a shot on goal and a kid gets decked and nobody's looking at him because you're worried about, did the JV kids trade feet? And as you're coming through, there's the trail. This is a good time to address coaches if communication is necessary. All right, but remember to keep your eyes on the field. Okay, try if you're coming through, it's your chance to either get to the coach. Maybe you had a question earlier and you said you couldn't get to him. You get to him, you come back. This is a good time as a slow trail if we're in kind of a slow transition coming up where you can come through and, hey, coach, you had a question for me. You can give him a second there at the cone, but keeping your eyes upfield, in your eyes at the field, let him kind of, he can talk, sideways at you, or, you can let him know, hey, coach, I'm going to stand here. My back of my head's going to be busy if I'm listening. You can go ahead and ask your question. I'll try and see if I can get that for you. All right. So that is a good chance to do that. All right. Then you start moving on down, and then you will start getting a settled situation. All right. So off ball, a settled situation. Now we're settled down on the offense on the other end. Lead and single side officials. All right. For me, the lead and single, you're on a string, right? We're supposed to be on a string, trading off our off and on ball responsibilities. All right, in that three-man crew. Okay. If you're off ball, be ready to back up your partner's goal coverage. All right. So if the lead's getting sucked way down on the end line, with a heavily contested play down there, make sure you're coming in on a string and you're covering the goal for him there. If the ball is getting pushed way out in his alley, same thing. We're on a string, we're coming in, and we're going to cover the goal for him there, for the lead if you have to. Okay. For both guys, if the ball is on the opposite side from you, you need to be watching that action in the crease. All right. What's going on there in front of the goal? What's going on with the kids that are cutting around the backside of the goal? All right. In that crease area, we're managing that off ball contact. That's something I brought up a few times now, as far as where we're making our money here, where we're actually doing our jobs as the off-ball official. All right. Try not to get caught ball watching. Work on looking inside there, see what's happening. What are there illegal screens being set? Is the defense interfering with the offensive player? This is where you're looking for those kids. Maybe the defenseman is taking his jab. He's, allegedly some guys that look like me would like to take the butt end of their stick as a pole and jab it into an attackman's hip. That's the area where you're looking for that kind of stuff to be happening. That's the area we're looking for them to be hooking him, a defenseman hooking him with a stick. That's the area we might see attackmen doing some of their stuff. Is the attackman grabbing the stick of the defender? If they're sliding, if they're in a situation where they're sliding from the crease, is that attackman doing something to interfere with that defender's ability to make his slide? Hooking his jersey with his stick, grabbing his stick to hold him back. Chicken winging his stick under his arm to hold him there. We got to keep an eye on that stuff. And again, preventative officiating. Talk them through that stuff. Let them know you see it and tell them to knock it off. Call them out by number. Make sure they acknowledge you. That's one I try to make sure too, is make sure they acknowledge you. Once I've said it once, I'll say, hey, 32, do you hear? Do you got me? And I want to hear a verbal confirmation from them that they've heard me give that instruction. They understand what I want them to do. And then we try our best to kind of preventive officiating, and work through that. A single side, when we're off ball, remember, don't watch that shot go out. Watch the shooter. And that's something that takes a lot of focus. Sometimes remind yourself, if that shot's not coming to your side, to your sideline over there, do not watch the shot, watch the shooter, right? Keep an eye on that shooter, making sure we're watching it through the completion. I try to focus on just staring at that kid. And if the shot's not coming my direction, just stare at him. And wait until you've heard the lead's whistle. When he's blowing it, then I can take my eyes off him. Because I'm waiting till that play is finished before I take my eyes off that kid. All right. Off ball settled situation is a trail. All right. He's got some of the most off ball responsibilities out of the whole crew. You've got to have the big picture. You're standing up there. wherever you're comfortable. Some guys might be there, just below the wing line up in the 40. Some guys might get a little tighter in down like the 35. You've got to have that big picture of the whole field, watching what's happening off ball. Don't get caught ball watching, right? Don't just be there watching the ball get passed around, staring at a kid who has the ball at X, right? Scan through your area of responsibility. So the ball's at X, all right? You've got all the kids, you've got all those other kids that are standing up above the goal. So there might be 2 kids back there, all right? You've got the other 10 kids that are standing up, or 8 kids that are standing up above the goal. All right, find 2 players that are near each other. Watch what they're doing. All right, if they're not doing anything they're not supposed to be doing, then move on to the next pair. Just kind of work your way across through those areas, looking for the kids that are next to each other, because that's where infractions are going to occur. That's where you might have illegal screens. That's where you could have interference happening. That's where you can have, the cheap shots that are happening. Just keep scanning through the kids and seeing, all right, what's this group of kids doing? All right, they're not doing anything they shouldn't be. All right, let's look at the next group of kids, and keep your eyes moving around. All right. Be ready for your sideline and midline coverage up there. All right. So again, we're not ball watching. We should be ready and prepared as we're watching kids. The plays what's happening in the play off ball. Be ready to cover your sideline and ready to cover the midline. All right. In short time situations, when you're off ball up there as a trail, you should have your eyes on the clock. All right. We should have our eyes on the clock. That could be either if you're an NCAA game, we have our eyes on the shot clock. If that's a regular NFHS game, we have our eyes on the game clock. We're in a short time situation. Often, if we're in a 3-man crew, the lead official, he's on the goal, and if he's on ball, he can't be taking his eyes off to go look at that clock. The trail, you need to have the big picture, and find yourself in a situation where you can see it. Right? If you need to, depending on where the scoreboard is, make sure you open yourself up to that angle where you can see the clock in your vision, and you can see the rest of the field in your vision there, of the players in front of you. This is another place. Be alert and available for coaches' timeouts, right? So you're that trail up there, you're off ball, and we're in short time situations, and even in regular game situations, be alert, be available for coaches' timeouts. Know that you're the guy who's closest to the coaches, all right? And that's something that, often coaches may get upset because they're screaming for a timeout, and the lead or single side awards the timeout, and the coach is yelling straight across, right through the trail. All right. And he's just either not paying attention or oblivious. Make sure when you're up there as that trail, we have that in our mind that, we're the closest one there. We should be listening for those coaches' timeouts. All right. On shots that are not going to your sideline, again, in a 2-man crew, stay with the shooter. So if it's a 2-man crew and your trail up there off ball, stay with you. Now going to watch that shooter. All right. And watch him through the completion of the play. Even in a 3-man crew. All right. You should keep an eye on that shooter up top as well. Right? We're off ball. When that shot occurs and it's not coming to your sideline, you're staying with that shooter to make sure we're going to catch anything for those big late hits. All right, so that's what I got for us for off-ball officiating. The main thing for what we need to make sure we're doing is, we're keeping our focus, not getting caught ball watching. We're looking for all those plays that are happening on the backside of our settled and transition situations where these are the infractions where they're ones where we've got to be seeing them because nobody else might not be looking. And most of the time they're going to show up on film if we don't have them. All right.
All right, Pat, you want to pause there for a second and we'll see
Sure.
if we have any questions. The one thing I wanted to address, and I appreciate your perspective of hearing 37 different things, especially as the new trail. You go back in the old days and we would go stand in the box and literally watch all the substitution happen, which could take up to 30 seconds, just to try to, catch that kid who was stepping on the field one step too early just to throw that flag. And I actually went over this a couple times this weekend. So really what the new thought process is to run up the wing line, okay, the side of the restraining box wing line, and stay that far out on the field, give the kids a chance to substitute and then the initial time and then get into play. If they're doing college substituting where they are running over midfield and subbing behind you, you should be up paying attention to the play at this point. We don't need to worry about all the little substitution stuff that's going on behind us unless there's a problem. Okay. Officiate when there's something to officiate. Okay. The same logic we use when talking about officiating behind the goal. If there's nothing to officiate, then get up there at the end of the wing line at that 40-yard line and pay attention to the play in front of you. Okay. Because there's a lot of stuff going on. One of the biggest issues I think that we run into is people, and a lot of this changed because of the over and back. When we get so caught up in the substitution, people forget to officiate the over and back. So that's where a lot of this thought process changed with that. And remember, the first thing that trail should be doing when he comes across is counting. All right. And then, as Pat said, you really have the primary focus on the shooter. For years, we had said the single, but that really came off of two-man mechanics. When we're in three-man mechanics, that trail, like Pat said, is the person who can see the entire field. So the shooter should always be their primary viewpoint, because most of the time, by the time that ball gets to the cage, they're not the on-ball official anymore anyway. All right. And then great point about the lead official keeping their eyes to the inside and trusting your trail to make that sideline call. Okay, we forget that sometimes. But remember, it is the lead official's responsibility in general to restart that play anytime that the ball is somewhere along goal line extended and going out of bounds on the bench side. All right, so the trail would stop it, but then the lead should be the one restarting it. Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments or tips with what Pat said?
Hey, Marty, this is Pat Gallagher.
Hey, Pat.
I just want to bring up kind of a safety item. I almost watched Chris Adams' season end the other night. He was the lead and working the goal, and the ball had worked its way over to the single side, and the kid drives it up, winds up, and takes a shot wide. Chris was in really good position. The shot was just a crap shot, and it zinged probably, I would estimate from where I was, 3 inches right by his head, and he heard the wind as the ball went zipping by. Mm-hmm. So, we're passing the responsibility, and that lead is down there, in position to call the goal. But as that ball is the shooting side is now opposite from you, be aware. Because nobody had done anything wrong, other than that wild ass shot that almost hit him square in the grape, and it probably would have ended his season that night in a scrimmage. So, be aware where the ball could come zipping by you.
Yeah, and that's a great point to bring up. We had talked about this with on some scrimmages over the weekend. That remember in the first quarter of the game, really try to take a look at what kind of offense a team is playing. And I think we were down at Hilton, and I was talking with the crew there, and they were running a 1-4. And whenever you see a team that's running a 1-4, you're going to have wing guys that are out wide. And just like Pat said, they're going to come down and probably take a lot of flat angle shots. Okay. And those flat angle shots are the ones you have to make sure that you're not in the shooting lane. And it sounds like, that's where Chris found himself. And sometimes, again, the shot just misses the mark. It comes off a post, and there are things that we can't do about it. I will tell you, just to throw the Chris Adams story in there. So Chris Adams did have his season ended about 5 years ago or whatever it was, when we had a big fat white sideline and a white ball was there, and he turned his ankle on it pretty good. So that has become part of my pregame, is to closely examine those white sidelines. So definitely little things like that we all learn that kind of stick. And again, once those things get stuck in there, they're there forever. So, all right. Anybody else have anything else they want to jump in and add? All right, Pat, looks like we're back up for part 2.
All right. We're going to kind of get into part 2. So I started working on this presentation. This was something that the second half was kind of what I was working on first. I'm hoping there's not too much. There's going to be a little overlap with last week's, but not too much. So I had my own little list of golden nuggets, these pieces of advice I've gotten from over the years. So, all these last few slides, none of this is my genius ideas. These are the kind of things I've picked up or things I've heard over the years that I thought would be good to share if for those that may not have heard it, and just try and spread the knowledge as best I can. So first one's up. This is one. I like to bring up and ask people, do you have 5 years experience or do you have 1 year's experience 5 times over? Right. And you can put whatever numbers you want on that, 10 years of experience or 1 year's experience 10 times over. Are you learning and growing, or are you just doing the same thing over and over and over again? Right. And that's something we should think about, especially as officials. We're trying to develop and get better. We should be growing and learning with each season. We're doing different games. You're seeing different plays. You're seeing different scenarios that are playing out. All right. And we need to make sure that we're growing with that. We're taking the advice or the coaching and feedback we're given, and we're building on it each year. All right. So that you're not just coming out and going through the motions and just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again, but not really gaining that depth of experience that you would expect if you have 5, 10 years experience. All right. We're not just doing the same thing we did over and over again. All right. This one, follow the R's lead. This is something I got fairly recently. You're not always going to be the R, okay, in a game. And every organization doesn't just need good leaders. They also need good followers. All right. We're going to be in 2-man crews and 3-man crews. And in the playoffs, you're going to have, 4 guys there. Everybody's got their role. Okay. Is the kind of, too many Chiefs, not enough Indians type of scenario. You got, when you're not the R, when it's time to follow, be a good follower. Okay. Adjust and to blend in as a crew. All right. That's something that's going to produce a better game for everybody, both the guys in the crew and for, the coaches, the players, everybody there. You have to be able to do that. All right. And especially that's something I've been told, as if you want to keep progressing as an official and kind of moving up places, you need to be able to do that. When you get in, you what the R wants you to do or how they want things done, you kind of want to be able to follow that and blend in a little bit and make sure we can be flexible. All right. Leave your ego in the car. All right. Being a confident and competent follower gives the leader the trust they need to succeed. Right. We're trying to succeed as a crew. All right. So you're there to help support that R and have and give them the best opportunity they can to succeed and to lead that crew. Okay. And at the game, we're a crew. Don't be that guy. If you're going to be on games with me this year and on the R, that's something that will come up. I'll usually bring that up as part of my pregame. All right. Don't be that guy. What do I mean by that? Don't be that guy that throws your crewmate under the bus to a coach, on the backside. Say coach is complaining about a play or a call, and you're that trail standing up there and he's like, hey, what was that? Don't be that guy who gives me, I don't know, coach. I don't know what he was seeing. Hey, coach. Yeah, it didn't look like that to me. Don't be that guy, right? We're on a game together as a crew. All right, you got to take care of your crew there, and you should be aware. Like, hey, if you didn't see it, hey, coach, I'll talk with so and so and check with them and find out what they saw. If you've already talked with that person what they saw, relay that to the coach with confidence and give them the explanation. Okay. I often will remind coaches, hey, coach, he's in the right position. He's the one down there. We're 40 yards away. He was right there on top of it. And that's what he saw. All right. You can back up your crew member there. Don't be that guy. All right. We control the pace of the game. This is something that comes up. There's always kind of this emphasis on getting games in faster and keeping the ball moving and get, quick restarts. We do want to keep the game flowing, but we need to be in control of the pace. All right. And there are times we should slow the game down. All right. Restarts by the substitution box. Get them out in the 5 yards. I know we generally want to have a quick restart, say it's a loose ball push or some kind of procedure there. If they're within 5 yards of the substitution box, slow it down. Make sure we get them out 5 yards. And if you have to, come up there closer. If you're going to be that trail blowing that in, come right on up there and just tell them, hey, I need you to come over here and direct the kid, point with your hand where you want him to be, right in front of all the coaches. They all understand what you're doing. I need you to get 5 yards away from the box before I can restart play. All right, be verbal about it. Everybody understands. We slow it down and then get a good restart there before we restart. Restarts on face-off violations. Bring them back to the X, especially in the NFHS games, right? If there's a face-off violation, the ball squirts out, we should not be letting the kid restart, 7 yards upfield. Okay. Bring them back. set them up. Other guys are holding the guys in below the restraining lines. Bring them back. All right, and then get a good restart. Or the kid who we call a violation, the face-off kid picks it up and starts running down the field. Bring him back. Again, that's our chance to control the pace of the game, and that's also our chance to control and show that we have control of that game. Right? You bring that kid back once or twice, he's going to stop doing that. Right? Because he's going to figure out that if he takes off running, he's not going to get an advantage of a quick restart there. He's going to have to come back. All right. Restarts on the end line on a shot out of bounds, have them restart it where it went out. Again, there's a chance where we need to slow the thing down. A lot of tackle will run over there and try and grab the first ball they see, and they want to restart right at X when the ball went out in the alley. Bring them out there, right? Take them back out to the alley, control that pace of the game, and then we'll get a good restart. Restarts after an over and back call. All right, if the player tries to take a running start and they're almost at the top of the box, bring them back. They're not entitled to restart down there. All right, and that's where we want to give them the advantage they should get for having the over and back call, but we're not going to let them start down there. And again, once you control that, you slow that down and bring them back. You've done that to them once or twice, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to know. They'll pick it up, they'll run back to within 5 yards of the midline and ready to go, and then we'll get a good restart. The last one is a big one. Games that are getting chippy and heated, right? Sometimes we may have the inclination where, we just want to get this thing going and get out of here. So we're going to restart this quick and just get it going again. When a lot of times we're probably just going to lead to bigger problems than if we just take our time, slow them down. If you slow them down, take the air out of the room, try and control it that way. So, I've got a loose ball push, things are a little chippy, boom, loose ball push, come in loud, and I'll come in and make them, hey, start over here, bring them over, stop them, get in the restart, take your time a little bit, have everybody settle out. All right. If we go boom right away, you're likely to have that continued, escalation keep happening. All right. This is our chance to take a little bit of the steam out of the room, slow things down, get this game under control. All right. So we can control the pace of the game. And some of these restarts is a good time to actually slow it down and get the game under control. All right. When things get heated, give yourself a second. This is one that I still have to work on. It's something I still have to make a conscious effort on my own to continue to work on. So in these situations, take a breath, look around, and then point and make a confident call. So loose ball, technical fouls on faceoffs. That's one where things are getting spun around. The two faceoff kids, say they're getting locked in and they're spinning around. All right, and you're that single side and you're getting spun around a little bit. That's the one where take a breath, look both ways, and that's something I would say I've seen Pete Buchanan do it on TV. Take a second, look both ways, confirm which direction you're going, and then then point and make a confident call. Because those are areas here where we tend to get ourselves in trouble. Say they're spun around, you've got a loose ball technical foul. The kids are not facing the direction they should be attacking. You blow your whistle, you point the direction the kid's facing and call his color, and now you've called the right color and you pointed the wrong way. All right, take a second, look around a little bit, and then point the direction and make a confident call. All right, same thing, deflected passes out of bounds. Take a second, look around, make sure you're pointing the right way. A lot of times something gets deflected, we get spun around because it's obviously going in a direction we didn't expect it to before it got deflected. And then contested loose ball scrambles out of bounds, right? Kids are turned around. You may have had to be hustling over to get to the line, right? And you're opening yourself up to see the line and see the play, and you got turned around a little bit. When you come up, take a breath, make sure we know which direction we're supposed to be pointing in, point that direction and make a confident call. All right. It's when we rush there that we may point in the wrong direction. And then we're in that situation where we got to now stop, explain ourselves. Some coaches yelling because you pointed his direction and the other coach is yelling because you called their color. And now we kind of have to clean it up after ourselves. So just take that second, take a breath, we'll get it right, and then we'll have a good confident call. The same thing applies to reporting fouls at the table. Take a breath and think before you speak. So as you come over there, you should be there. All right, I got the number. I got my color. I got my number. Got my infraction. I got my time. I'm thinking about it as I go over there. And then when I go straddle the midfield line, as I set my feet, that's my good chance to take one last breath, take a second, control our thoughts, and then give the information. A lot of times for me, you might see me do this to help me get set in that mode is I'll make sure I'll then acknowledge the whoever's going to be, I'm reporting the penalty to, right? I'll look right at them. I may even point at them. I want to make sure I get, eye contact with them. And that's kind of my moment of I take a breath, I'm looking at them, and I reset, and then we're going to be giving the information to them. All right. And that's a good time to take a moment and then make sure we get it out right. Because if we stumble through that, we're going to start having questions. Coaches start asking questions. There's confusion, and now we're taking more time than we needed to. That's a good example where slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So just take a breath and think before you speak when you're reporting penalties. All right, handling difficult coaches. All right, be nice. All right, we just got to be nice. Try to remain calm. Be calm and professional. We're the professionals on the field. Coach gets heated, you remain calm. You want to go ahead and be the one who's projecting a calm presence, a professional presence. All right. You need to give respect to get respect. All right. That's part of how we handle ourselves when you're dealing with coaches, with other game personnel. All right. If you're just barking orders at everybody, it's going to be very hard to get them to do something for you that you want them to do. All right. You gotta give some respect to get respect. All right. This is another one, that last point. I wish, maybe Rob one day can come back and do this. That's one I really wanted to have in this presentation. Some guys may not have heard it before. It made a big impact for me, especially earlier on in my officiating career and continuing now. Rob used to give his presentation on verbal judo. So if you haven't heard it before, maybe somebody's got it archived. Maybe you can get Rob to come out of retirement for us and do it on one of these Zoom meetings, preseason or during a season sometime. All right. The big points out of that that I've kept with me, you can be firm, but try to give commands in the form of a request. Ask them to do it for you. Make it a request of them. Hey coach, can you do this for me? Hey, player 5, can you please do this for me? Can you please stop doing this for me? All right. I can be firm in my tone, but I'm asking it in the form of a request. So I'm not barking at them. I'm asking them to do something for me. And when they do it, tell them thank you. All right. Hey, bud, I need you to restart right here. All right. Ball needs to come out here on a shot off the end line. Kid's trying to start at X. Ball went out in the alley. All right. Hey, I need you to come out here. We're going to restart out here in the alley, please. Out here, please. I'll use the word please a bunch of times as I ask him to come over there. All right. And when he gets there, I say, all right, bud, thanks for here we go. And then we go. All right. Give them choices. That's the other big takeaway from that. Give them choices so that they can make a choice. They can try to influence them into making the right choice. Right. So if you give them choices, they at least feel that they have empowerment to choose what they're going to do next. All right. And you're not just commanding them what to do. You're giving them some choices. You're giving them an out where they can choose to do the right thing and not do the wrong thing and end up in the penalty box or things get worse. Give them options, give them choices. All right. And then try and influence them into making the correct choice. All right. So I think this is something that would be, if you haven't heard those things before, I would check that out. Maybe you can Google it yourself and see if there's some presentation that talks about that. The verbal judo was something that I think is great for all officials to have gotten through that. All right. Don't take it personally. All right. Especially as the season goes on, some of this stuff builds up. You can't take it personally. Okay. Everyone's going to have an opinion. And you know what? Most of them don't matter. All right. You're getting parents yelling stuff, assistant coach yelling something, kid halfway down the bench yelling something. You gotta try and shut a lot of that stuff out. Right. You can't pick up, you got to pick your battles. You can't be dealing with every person who says something. Just remember, don't take some of that stuff personally. There are some coaches, me being one of them back in the day when I was doing it, I would be yelling quite a bit. And a lot of coaches like that. And maybe they're working for calls and nothing personal about it. And I've had plenty of times where I've had a coach chewing my ear out for a game, and then we're having beers the next day or a couple of days later, or I'm seeing him in the summertime during summer ball. And again, it's nothing personal. You just can't take it personally. Half the people involved will not like every call that's made. It's just what it is. You just can't take that kind of stuff personally. Coaches and parents are emotionally involved. We cannot be emotionally involved. So you just cannot take it personally. All right. They have a vested interest in this, whether their team wins or loses. We don't, and we cannot get. We should not be emotionally involved. We shouldn't let those emotions get to us. You got to be able to let it go. All right. Again, might be a little overlap from last week, but it's a big one. Mistakes will happen, right? They will happen. Everybody makes mistakes. All right. But we need to acknowledge them. All right. We need to correct them. And this is another phrase that I've gotten years ago. Don't do what's easy, do what's right. If you've got a mistake and you made one, own up to it. And make sure we go ahead and do the right thing. If we have to stop play and get things set to be where they need to be, if we need to take a goal off the board, then we need to do that. And remember, in the rule book, it does say, you have to give an explanation given to both head coaches, right? If you have to make a correction of an error, you need to give that explanation to both head coaches. All right. So, don't do what's easy, do what's right. If you have to go over there and tell them, hey, coach, we screwed this, this was not right. We need to fix it. This is what we're doing, and explain it to both of them so we're ready to go. All right. Now, once you've corrected your mistakes, you learn from them. All right. We got to learn from those mistakes and move on. Next play mentality. Just like players and coaches, you got to have that next play mentality. Once we've learned from it, we're moving on and we're ready to take on our next play. But the big emphasis at the end is you just don't make a habit of them. Mistakes will happen. Everybody makes them. Don't make a habit of them. Don't make it a habit of making the same mistake over and over again. All right. On my last slide, I think this is something that everybody's kind of emphasizing. I think we should keep reminding everybody this. You have to have fun, right? Enjoy the games. All right. Appreciate your crew, and appreciate, the ride through another whirlwind season. We're starting scrimmages kind of last week, this week. I'm looking at my calendar, and in a blink of an eye, it's going to be May and June, and it's going to be over. So just have fun while we're going through it. Enjoy the time you spend on the field. Enjoy the games. Appreciate the crews you're working with. Meet up for beers, meet up for the happy hours when you can, and try and enjoy it while we're doing this. If you're not enjoying it, maybe you take a little time and step away, and remember what we're doing here and why you're doing it.